That should work. I've got 2 words for you. Hello. My name is Ave. And today, during the recording, editing, and scripting of this video, I can guarantee you one thing. I will have watched at least one piece of wrestling content. Today, for example, I watched AEW Dynamite, and I also watched the insanely good match between Takeshita Konosuke and Tetsuya Endo from 2019. Already hear you in the comments section, shouting, nay, booing, "Oh, Ave, wrestling's just a kid's sport. It's not even real. It's for babies. Oh, why is there a man dressed up like an evil Santa Claus in a top hat with a necklace full of skulls?" Well, hey, it seems like some of your protestations are maybe a little off base. So I just want to highlight to you that is Papa Shango from 1990s era WWE. But apart from that, let's answer the rest of your questions. No, wrestling is not a kid's show. As a matter of fact, it's more likely for boomers. Check the demographics. But that being said, I'm somewhat of a quirk in wrestling fandom, as I only jumped on board recently. As a 23-year-old man, what's cooler than sitting down and watching some men and women in far too much lycra do things that apparently don't hurt? Tell that to the king of strong style, Shinsuke Nakamura. Tell that to the men whose chests I'm showing you right now that are so red and full of blisters, you'll think it's Santa Claus's damn feet after a day running around with the reindeer. There's a word that I haven't touched on in regards to wrestling that some people do often contend. Wrestling's a sport, and while there are many arguments and counter-arguments to it, the first of which being wrestling was literally one of the first sports ever conceived in the Olympics, the other being, well, it's fake and scripted, how can it be a sport? To which I will counter your counter-argument by pointing out this entire list of match fixing and saying that I don't think sport has to be unscripted for you to enjoy it. If you still watch the baseball, imagine how many World Series have been plighted and affected by match fixing. There was famously a scandal in cricket a number of years ago where there were members of the Indian and Pakistani cricket team that would tell gamblers or be paid by gamblers to perform an action, a no ball in some instances, or a certain form of action in the game that would net these gamblers millions and millions of their currency. So I don't think that a scripted outcome is why people don't like wrestling. I simply think that people don't like wrestling because they don't give it the chance. This is something that, yes, it's insane. Yes, it's batshit. Yes, there are so many strange things involved in this sport. But I think that today, my aim is not to make you a fan, because I don't think that happens overnight. I think that my aim today with this video is to merely show, not even convince, but show you, the audience, that wrestling has a unique way of telling a story, and that it can only be done using wrestling itself. To illustrate my point about how wrestling tells a unique story, I'm going to take you from my home here in Melbourne, Australia, all the way to Japan, to Sapporo, back a few years to 2018. WWE has been toiling in mediocrity for a number of years now, and as a result, the eyes of the wrestling world are turned to one place: Japan, and they are fixed firmly on one man in particular, Kenny Omega. This man has become the god of pro wrestling, the leader of the Lethal Bullet Club, and the one man who's about to get his head kicked in. Mere minutes after suffering defeat at the hands of Jay White in his title defense of the IWGP United States Heavyweight Championship, Kenny has been rushed, not by an enemy, but by someone he thought was his friend, the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes, a member of the Bullet Club. And now, our hero emerges, shrouded in white, dazzling like the phoenix he is. As he emerges, he sends a chill through those members of the Bullet Club who are now engaging in a savage beatdown of Kenny Omega. This man is Kota Ibushi. Kota Ibushi is the reason that Kenny Omega is even in Japan in the first place. Kenny was a young, emerging star of the American promotion Ring of Honor, while Kota was already a full-blown superstar in the Japanese company DDT. Kenny saw something in the matches that Kota was putting on. He saw a passion, he saw a desire, and he saw an athleticism unmatched by anyone else. As a result, it led to one of the most iconic call-out videos, the most iconic challenges ever issued in wrestling history. The resulting match coming from this call-out is one of the greatest first matches between rivals ever. It starts inside the ring, and there's this random spot that I'll show here where they just point outside and they scream outside before they run parallel next to each other, not laying a finger on each other, outside before resuming their fight. It's insane. So many of these images that I'm replaying here in front of you have become have become iconic in the whole wrestling world. There's even some random bit where Kenny Omega just does a Kamehameha. But even though I said the word rivals, this wasn't a rivalry that formed. Instead, it was one of the most important tag teams that pro wrestling has ever seen. They were originally billed as the Golden Twins, or Golden Brothers in English. But then there was a twist. Kota and Kenny decided that they wanted to actually make a change, culturally and in wrestling. And so they renamed themselves the Golden Lovers. And as you can see from here, there are so many instances of them really showing what it was to be a lover. These men developed a bond, more than a brotherhood. This was a kinship that centered around two things: their love for each other and their love for wrestling. As I touched on earlier, there was an athleticism that led Kenny to Kota. And while they launched themselves into the air, it wasn't just that. Their camaraderie launched themselves into the hearts and minds of wrestling fans everywhere. And they formed an iconic tag team that went on to win multiple tag team titles, spanning different companies from Japan. They won the IWGP Tag Team Championship and the DDT Tag Team Championship. They were iconic. As a matter of fact, I mentioned two wrestlers earlier in this video: Tetsuya Endo and Takeshita Konosuke. Those men dethroned Kenny and Kota as DDT Tag Champions in 2014. However, almost directly as a result of this loss, it led to a divide between Kota and Kenny. One that would form a rift between them, leading to a singles match that was bloody, that was brutal, and it was so full of emotion. This match may have changed the course of wrestling forever because Kenny was intimidated. He was scared by how much better his tag partner was. And he wanted to prove himself that he could do it. It wasn't enough. To this day, there is one man that has kicked out of Kenny's finisher, the iconic one-winged angel. That man's Kota Ibushi. And that match was their one in 2015. And as they lie there, Kenny defeated. Kota wretched in half by what he's done. Because in this case, his love of wrestling outstripped his love of Kenny. Which is why the emotion was so pure, so full of joy when after the breakup of this tag team, after they fell apart because Kota was too good for Kenny, because Kenny felt intimidated. Here they are. This is one shining moment in wrestling history. This is one moment that will live on forever. I truly think that there is nothing more pure in wrestling than this moment. It's brought me to tears multiple times, and I hope that given the context, it stirs something within you. Despite becoming the god of pro wrestling himself, despite putting on the greatest match of all time, despite pushing himself to the limit in every way as a wrestler, a man, as a competitor, it wasn't enough for Kenny. It didn't mean anything. For years, he became a dastardly heel, shrouding himself in the unbreakable armor of the Bullet Club, a faction he led, who then turned their back on him. And who was there to pick Kenny up at his lowest moment? It couldn't have been anyone else. It had to be Kota Ibushi. This embrace, this rekindled friendship, and this love renewed is truly beautiful beyond words. This represents all of the values that wrestling conveys. It represents hard work. It represents passion. It represents forgiveness of those who wrong you in the ring and outside of it. It also shows how powerful a perfectly crafted story can be. One that takes years. One that literally started a continent away. At this point, it was about 10 years since that first DDT match together. And after all that they'd been through, they find each other in their arms. I think that the main takeaway from this first part of my video is that wrestling tells stories that only wrestling can. In what other circumstance could this happen? Where it was unfolding in real time, where there were vignettes week on week of illusions, of forlorn gazes shared between these two men. There were times when Kenny cost Kota championships. There were times when Kenny battered away Kota's condolences. But it didn't matter. This was a story that only wrestling can tell. Another instance of perfect emotion within wrestling is that of the rise of the anxious millennial cowboy, Hangman Adam Page. Not only does this story show how one man can work his way from full-time high school teacher, part-time wrestler, to one of the biggest stars in the world of wrestling today. Adam Page, born Stephen Waltz, is the fourth and current holder of the AEW World Championship. Waltz debuted as Adam Page in 2009 while wrestling for the small indie company CWF. Hangman joined Ring of Honor, where he performed admirably, winning the Trios Tag Team title with a couple of guys called the Young Bucks, or in this incarnation with Hangman and the Young Bucks, they became the Hung Bucks. Nice. But as Ring of Honor kept on escalating and Hangman became a bigger part of their plans, he joined the Bullet Club, a lethal group of Western wrestlers. As a result of the added notoriety of the Bullet Club and Ring of Honor's growth, some of the members of this stable were sent to go wrestle in New Japan Pro Wrestling, Waltz being one of them. So he decided to uproot his life, move to Japan, and become a full-time pro wrestler. The dream was coming true. And over there, he was hanging out with the Young Bucks, as well as this other guy. You may have heard of him, Kenny Omega. Now, Kenny was about to become embroiled in one of the greatest feuds wrestling has ever seen. A 3-act masterpiece with the Rainmaker himself, Kazuchika Okada. As for Hangman, he was a bit part player in a story that was much bigger than him. He was a lower mid-card wrestler who would often be sent out just to job, just to go out and lose. But that's okay, because he was on his way up. I mean, I lie about that last part. He didn't really do much in New Japan. As a matter of fact, it was such a joke amongst my friends that Hangman never did anything. Whenever he was on screen, we would all in unison ask, "Hey, Hangman, got anything to say?" Invariably, he would just look like an idle animation for Sonic the Hedgehog, standing there in his denim shirt, in his jeans that are a little bit too tight to fit those monster quads, and a pair of cowboy boots. Come on, Hangman. You got anything to say? Yeah, that's what I thought. For the most part, he was a nobody, and he'd just linger in the back of scenes with nothing to say. I don't care. Good job, Hanger. I'm proud of you. As time progresses, almost all of these wrestlers come back to America and join AEW, All Elite Wrestling, this time as the Elite. And of course, Hangman comes back to stay close to his friends and people he'd just been wrestling with at this point since the early 2010s. As it turns out, this gamble pays off, because Hangman ends up competing for the first ever AEW championship reign. Against who else but the man himself, the legend, Chris Jericho. And to say that Hanger puts a lot of pressure on himself, coming off years of toiling in mediocrity in New Japan, is an understatement. He goes out there and gives it everything he can. But it's not enough. Chris Jericho's a legend. He's one of the biggest stars that AEW signs. Of course he was going to be the one who takes the belt. Of course it was going to be Jericho to lead the promotion in its early days. They had to build a brand. And who better to build a brand around than Y2J? A man who's won every championship everywhere he's gone. Truly one of the all-time great pro wrestlers. Following up this disappointment, Hangman is paired in a tag team with none other than our friend Kenny Omega. At this point, the duo immediately catapults themselves into the conversation for best tag teams in the world. Kenny's athleticism, his death-defying skills, paired with the brutal striking ability of Hangman. It's a match made in heaven. And they perform like it. They go on a tear, even going as far as to claim the AEW championship. But it's never enough. It was never enough for Hangman. Because in a way that mimics a story that we've already discussed, Hangman feels like he's falling behind his friend. He feels like he's being left. He's being isolated. And you can see that play out. In a series of YouTube videos on the Being the Elite YouTube channel, you see Hangman fall apart. You see the mental demons, the self-sabotaging behavior really take control of him. And this impacts him in the ring. He's not the same guy. There are so many moments when we see Hangman about to collapse mentally, about to give it all up because of the inadequacy he sees himself performing at. The culmination of which is the greatest tag team match I've ever seen. It's one of AEW's first pay-per-views. And Hangman and Kenny come out to face the Young Bucks. And while I'm saying this, I'm always phrasing them as Hangman and Kenny because they weren't a tag team. They were two singles wrestlers who happened to share a belt. They were given no shared entrance. They were given nothing to show that they were a team. And it sure as shit seemed like it. Early on in the match, there's a brutal spot where Hangman's one of the best strikers in AEW. One of the best strikers in world wrestling. And he takes it out on Kenny. During a tag, he doesn't tag as a tag team would. He gives him a chop across the chest. And as the match unfolds, as it becomes more brutal, there are times when this comradeship feels like it's waxing and waning almost by the minute. And the storytelling is off the charts. These people put on an absolute show. One that may never be mimicked. And one that was accentuated by the Young Bucks. Those people that Hangman won tag championships with. The people that Kenny is now best friends with, both in the ring and in real life. And so as it happens, Kenny and Hangman take the win. And while the Young Bucks look devastated, Kenny looks proud. And he goes over and shakes their hand. There is that comradeship of the elite. But Hangman, once again intimidated, once again scared off. He can't do it. He can't shake their hand. He turns away and walks out of the ring in a manner that was so deeply concerning to fans of this duo. But the worst truly was yet to come. Although there was always an air of the Kenny and Hangman tag team being fraught with danger, this was the turning point. This was where the emotion started to build. And for those who hadn't seen what was going on behind the scenes, it was a real escalation of the issues that these people had together. Almost as quickly as it grew, this friendship was shattered because the final nail in the coffin was in the build to All Out. The Young Bucks were in a match to decide the number one contenders for the AEW Tag Team World Champions against FTR. And as it came down to it, one of the Bucks went for the save as the other was getting pinned. But they couldn't. Because who was there? Hangman. Grabbing their ankle and holding them back, making them eat the pin in the most embarrassing fashion imaginable. being turned on by your own friend. And it was heartbreaking. The Young Bucks were stunned. Kenny was stunned. Hangman looked as if he couldn't believe what he'd just done. From this point, it was over. There was irreparable damage caused. And no matter how hard Hangman tried to repair his friendship with Kenny, there was no way back. There was nothing that they could do after he betrayed his friends in this manner. And after more than 220 days reigning as the tag team champions, it all fell apart. At All Out, it was over. Hangman and Kenny lost to FTR. And this friendship, the last remnants of which were shredded. At this point in their respective careers, there was a distinctive divergence. Hangman went back to the mid-card, and Kenny went on a tear. He became the belt collector. He became a man who shrouded himself in gold. He was running rampant through the single divisions, not just in AEW, but also in AAA and Impact, where he became their respective singles champions. Until finally it happened. In a barbed wire death match against Jon Moxley, Kenny wins it. Kenny wins the AEW heavyweight title. And the goal that he has had since leaving Kota in Japan has finally been achieved. It's finally happened. Kenny is now AEW World Champion. And he's climbed the mountain. And while Hangman should have been at his side, he was nowhere in sight. All while this is unfolding, behind the scenes, Hangman is struggling. As a matter of fact, he's down so bad, he turns to a cult, the Dark Order. Now, this group is a almost tailor-made fit for Hangman, because a lot of the members of the Dark Order were performing a role that he did in New Japan. They were lower mid-card guys. There were just a lot of them. They were there to hang out and be, to all intents and purposes, just fun-loving cult members. And with this group by his back, Hangman was able to spin it round. He himself started to pick up his singles career, and it looked like the ball was once again rolling. The cowboy was loose. In between Hangman fighting himself with a new group of friends in the Dark Order, and Kenny going on to become the unstoppable tyrant in AEW, there was a match between them at Full Gear. This match was just months after Kenny abandoned Hangman in the ring. And despite begging Hangman for any sort of humility, any sort of friendship between the two, Hangman couldn't give him any. And the resulting match, there was always only going to be one outcome. It was a beatdown. There was nothing more than that. Kenny got in. He got out. He did the job. On to the next one. But the most important thing from this match wasn't what happened between the bells. It was those 7 words that Kenny taunted into Hangman's ear. Those 7 magic words would have an unchangeable impact on this feud. So now Hangman, despite this loss, is on a quest for revenge. He racks up plenty of wins and climbs up the AEW ranks, but he does nothing to stand out, to show why he should be the number 1 competitor for Kenny's gold. So in an effort to help out his new friends, he finds out that the Dark Order will be challenging the Elite for a shot at the tag team titles, at this point held by the Young Bucks. And it's Halloween. We see the Toon Squad decked out, ready to rock, ready to go, ready to wrestle. At this point, we skip ahead a few months, back to where Kenny has the gold. And now, Hangman, he's the number one contender. He's rank 1 in AEW's rankings, with his only loss, the one to Kenny, just months ago. And so now, it's also an opportunity for his new friends, the Dark Order, to defeat the Young Bucks. And as a result, have a shot at their gold as well, as they're still holding the tag team belts. And so in this 10-man elimination match, Hangman's left with it all to do. He's the only one there. The final one on his team. And he fights and he scraps and he does everything that he can. But of course, it's not enough. The Elite cheat. The Elite show that they've got the extra skill where it counts. And despite Hangman doing his best and pinning one of the Jacksons, one of the Young Bucks, he can't do it. He's not only let himself down, lost number 1 contendership, and he's out of the top 5 of the AEW rankings. He's also let down his friends, who now also can't challenge for those belts. There was so much on the line. There was so much for Hangman to be able to bring it back, to be able to restore the respect for him that people lost when their tag team fell apart between Hangman and Kenny. But as he always does, he fails. He lost to Kenny. He lost to the Bucks. He sure as shit lost a fuckload in New Japan. It was all the guy knew how to do. The key moment of this match, of course, it was between Kenny and Hangman. Hanger was there. He had the buckshot lariat, his amazing finisher, locked and loaded. He was ready to pull the trigger, but he couldn't. And this interaction, this soul exchange between friends who lost sight of what they were, who lost sight of who they are. That's the defining moment in this whole match. It's the one that leaves the impact. And as a result of Hangman not being able to pull the trigger on his own finisher, they lose. He couldn't separate his old friends from his new, and it cost everyone involved. There was no coming back. He spirals even further and further and further. Was there any way back for our dear friend Hangman? And it's at this point that Hangman disappears. He's off TV and the build to Full Gear is in full swing. And as we see it happen, there is an insane casino ladder match to see who is going up against Kenny Omega. To see who's challenging him for the belt. He's held it for almost a year. Fucking TikTok, Tony Khan. Come on, give someone else a shot. And so is this amazing list of competitors. Former champion Jon Moxley. Could he win this match? Could he be the first one to become a 2-time singles champion? There's Andrade El Idolo, a new signing, who was one of the best members of the Lucha Libre scene for the past decade. There's Lance Archer, the Murder Hawk Monster, a 6'8" man who can toss anyone as far as the eye can see. But there's also a joker. We don't know who it is. We see the crowd. There are signs saying, "Where's Hangman?" We haven't seen him in 3 months. He hasn't wrestled since he lost that match. And so the clock ticks, the clock ticks, the clock ticks. Bye. More members of this battle royale come in and they get eliminated. Or they get thrown out of the ring. But no. Still nowhere in sight. And then finally, as the match is winding down, music hits. You've heard it before, but not in months. You thought this would be the last person to walk through the tunnel and vie for this final spot.
One more competitor, right?
But no,
we are seconds away
your
from
eyes
finding
don't
out who
deceive
is
you.
the
What you
Joker.
see is the truth. And as he comes walking down, it's the cowboy himself. It's Hangman Adam Page.
Well, let's do some cowboy cheers then, somebody. What do you say?
Look who's back! JR.
He takes a brutal paradigm shift from John Moxley. He hits someone with a buckshot lariat. He's got all the momentum, and he does it. He staggers to the top of the ladder and unhooks the casino chip, making him the person, making him the one that Kenny needs to be fearful of, making Hangman the challenger for Kenny's belt at Full Gear.
Come out, ladder, Page.
Get up!
Make yourself famous tonight.
Get up! Hangman does it!
Page heading to a title shot with Kenny Omega somewhere down the road.
Hangman
What the hell
Adam
is this ladder match?
What a poetic return for Hangman Adam Page to all elite wrestling.
As this match plays out in front of you, I want you to reflect. I want you to think about what you're seeing. The heart in your mouth near falls. The brutality of this match. The story that unfolds. This isn't a match about the revenge that a man wants to take on a friend he feels wronged by. It's not about trying to match the skills and levels of someone that you feel has way outstripped you. It's about passion. It's about overcoming what you think is impossible. Most importantly, it's about proving to yourself that you're good enough. I sit here with a script that's over 3,000 words long, making this video because Hangman taught me I was good enough. I could try something new. Wrestling showed me that anything is possible, and that no matter what, if I push myself to beyond what I thought that my own limit was, I can be a champion too. Watch this. Take it in. This isn't a story that can be contained within this script. This is a living and breathing tapestry that to this very day is still unfolding. I cannot pack every moment leading up to this into the 3 slaps on the mat, and that's not the point. It's to show you that you can grow. You can be better. You can do some cowboy shit. So one last time, I want to take you back to Sapporo, and let's get a look at the real ignition point of this feud. Let's appreciate all that the storytelling in wrestling can be. Let's watch the Golden Lovers one more time. Thank you for watching. I hope you give this a chance. Good job, Hanger. I'm proud of you.